Well, hello folks, how you doing? This is Wayne S. Pierce for the American Liberty Radio Network. How are you? Are you good? Are you happening? Are you there? Yeah, it's one of those days, folks. The 3rd of May, 2017. How are you? Yeah. Lots of things going on. People still pissed off about Trump. I mean, what do you do? I mean, what do you do? Nobody's happy, folks. I'm just going to plainly state that right now. No one is happy. No one. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what your political affiliations are. I don't care. Okay? I don't. I'm nonpartisan. I'm independent. You can say whatever it is you want to say. But that's where I'm at, folks. Nobody cares. Nobody's happy. Nobody's getting what they want. Nobody's... Shall I go on? Or do you get the point? The Republicans and Democrats are acting like little spoiled brat kids because they're not getting what they want. And unfortunately, they're not going to get what they want because there's going to be people like you and I that are going to say, wait, time out. We the people own the federal government. If we didn't, why are we paying taxes? But then again, on the other side of that same coin, this United States of America would run quite nicely and quite efficiently if we didn't have a central government stealing our money out of our hard-earned wages. So we have one party, two factions, and a lot of pissed off citizens. That doesn't make for a good day, folks. That does not make for a good day. All right? I don't know. I don't know why people are so stupid. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you guys can enlighten me. Why are people so stupid? And I say that to lead into this. There are two Clintons in the news today. There's a video that shows fake media turns on pathetic failure Hillary. Quote, everybody I've talked to, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, and the like, said that was pathetic. Hillary Clinton said Tuesday that she takes personal responsibility for her election loss to Donald Trump, but then immediately proceeded to blame anyone but herself, prompting even the fake mainstream media to throw her under the bus. That's one. So that goes up on American Liberty Radio Podcast. There's another Clinton who's in the news today. No, it's not Slick Willie. As if we don't get enough of the pathetic pedophiles called the Clintons, and the Clinton Foundation, and the Clinton cabal, and whatever you want to call it. Like I said, there's two Clintons in the news today. Chelsea Clinton being groomed for presidency. New Ben Carson art. Clinton dynasty heir seems keen to pursue quote-unquote political birthright. This is 3rd of May 2017, Infowars.com. A new creative work from cartoonist Ben Garrison. Did I say Ben Carson? Sorry. Ben Garrison art depicts former first daughter Chelsea Clinton being groomed to run for a political office. So I'm going to put that up there on the American Liberty Radio podcast. Let me ask you something other than why are people so stupid? In all of the years that Clinton was in office, President Clinton was in office, what did Slick Willie do that ever helped the United States of America? What did he do? That's a good question, isn't it? It's a very good question. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, in my opinion, I think we should not have a president. Matter of fact, let me just go one step further. We should not have Washington, D.C. I've said it before in previous podcasts. We need to cut Washington, D.C. off and drop it into the Atlantic. We need to repeal the Act of 1871. That would end all of the problems we are having at this point. DNC silent after Vice Chair defends pro-Sharia organizer. Vice Chair urges opponents of Linda Sussauer to fall back. The Democratic National Committee has yet to respond to recent comments by its newly elected vice chairman defending a Sharia law advocate who is reportedly linked to the terrorist organization Hamas. Folks, especially in Billings, Montana, I got 3 words for you. Lock and load. That went up on American Liberty Radio podcast. I'm not calling for a coup, folks. Don't get on the offense with the government. Because you know darn well that the government is as offensive as they are, and they're pissing a lot of people off. Breitbart is reporting Rush Limbaugh to Pence. Quote, "What is the point of voting Republican if the Democrats are going to continue to win?" Unquote. Why vote Republican? Tuesday on his nationally syndicated radio program, conservative talker Rush Limbaugh interviewed Vice President Mike Pence about the spending bill expected to be passed by Congress and sent to President Donald Trump to be signed into law. Some Democrats are declaring it to be a victory, given the bill does not fund Trump's proposed border wall and it does not defund Planned Parenthood. Limbaugh asked Vice President what the point was for voting for Republicans if they were going to continue to give Democrats victories. Pence said, Rush Limbaugh, it's an honor to be with you always. Thanks for having me on. Blah, 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 blah. When Rush Limbaugh asked the question, Mike Pence said, well, look, respectively, Rush, I actually think this was, as the president said a little while ago, I think this was actually a clear win for the American people. Look, you've had Washington, D.C. that has been, paralyzed by gridlock and partisan infighting for years. And in this new president, you have someone who was able to bring people together and make a $21 billion increase in defense spending at a time of great challenge for America's interest around the world. And that's he spoke about that today, surrounded by a lot of great members of the United States Air Force. And it was also a piece for years. Democrats in Washington insisted that any increase in defense spending would be matched with an increase in domestic spending. So you got to grow the government at home if you're going to, invest in our national defense. This ended that. I mean, in a very real sense, this was a game changer because we're just back to putting the safety, security, and the national defense of American people first. And I think it sends, having just traveled around the Asian Pacific representing the president over the last couple of weeks, I think it sends a decisive message to the world that under President Trump's leadership, we're going to make the strongest military in history even stronger. Well, really? That was after Rush Limbaugh asked him, if this is what happens, if this is what happens, Mr. Vice President, why vote Republican? What is the point of voting Republican if the Democrats are going to continue to win practically 95% of their objectives, such as in this last budget deal? That's what he was asking about, was the budget deal. And we all know about the budget of the United States of America. There is none. Whatever money comes in, they spend it. So, without me hammering on this thing and all that, and you guys are confused as to what I just read, I'm going to put that on American Liberty Radio Podcast for you folks to check it out. I like Rush Limbaugh. I like him. There are times that I don't always agree with what he says, and that's fine because, we don't always have to agree on everything, do we? But I like his style. He's upfront. He says it like it is. And he'll ask the tough questions. I remember years ago when he had his television show, and I watched him on TV. And I remember that. And I remember living in Stockton, California, and I remember listening to him on KFBK radio out of Sacramento. And I began to like him then, and that was back in the 90s. That was like, I don't know, 91, 92. Or no. I came back to California back in 92, and so it was about 93, 94. Yeah. His TV show was on in the 80s. I think Reagan was president. But he says it like it is. He says it like it is, and that's what I like. I also like Alex Jones. I also like Michael Savage. I also, listen to other people too as well. But I don't always agree with them. And I'm not looking for people to agree with me all the time either. That's why I say go out, and that's why I encourage people to go out and look this stuff up there on their own. Under fire, White House staff claims see-through fence levee flood protection system is a border wall. This potentially hurts President Trump's efforts to succeed later in the year in delivering an actual border wall. President Donald Trump's White House communications team is claiming inaccurately that there is a border wall funding in the spending bill before Congress right now. The move comes as the administration is facing political heat for the failure to obtain federal appropriations in the new omnibus bill, spending bill, to pay for the construction of a wall as President Trump promised on the campaign trail. So what is right? What is wrong? What is truth? What is fact? What is anything anymore? Okay. It's interesting to note here that as I look around, as I see what is going on, as I witness the fall of America, and as I witness people coming unglued about who's right, who's wrong, and this party is this and this party's that, and all that, when I look at all of the infighting and the fringe fighting, as I like to call it, with the fringe groups battling one another when they don't know what the hell they're doing either. and they don't know what the hell's going on. When I look at this, my first thought is, how did it get to this point? How did it get to this point? And we have to understand, how did it get to this point? With the signature of President Ulysses S. Grant on the Act of 1871, we, at that point, became a business. The United States of America prior to 1871 was a bunch of people trying to do what they had to do to get along and to do what they had to do to live and survive. Okay? From 1776 and also 1791 upwards to 1871, we were just trying to survive. Our ancestors were trying to survive. The founding fathers were going through all sorts of battles, all sorts of wars and disruptions and unrest in America. And they were doing everything they could to survive, to make things better for people. That's what they were doing. Okay? They didn't have the instantaneous news that we have today. Okay? They didn't. What they had was somebody on horseback that went from town to town to tell people what's going on. So, news traveled slow. But in 1871, shortly after the Civil War, we were broke. So there was a whole area of just, we didn't know what we were doing at that point because we had just gotten out of the Civil War. President Lincoln had been assassinated, and all that in 1865. And the whole thing just fell apart at that point. And here we were trying to make ends meet. Here we were when President Ulysses S. Grant signed the Act of 1871 into law, or into the foundation of America at that point, creating what we have today in that 10 square mile piece of land on the East Coast called Washington, D.C. I mean, it was already kind of, I don't know. It just, when President Ulysses S. Grant signed that, he basically gave the British government, handed over the keys to America to the British government. That's what he did. Okay? That's what he did. And from that point on, we've been in the hole ever since. Well, it even got worse from 1871 to 1913. It got worse when President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act and the Internal Revenue Act, basically creating the Federal Reserve for the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, having owned their own bank. Had nothing to do with the banking system at that time or prior to that, because everything was working quite well. Every gear was well greased and everything was just working, really hand to hand, and it worked, apparently. Because we had law enforcement, we had fire protection, we had roads, we had schools, we had everything up to 1913. And everything was just fine. Then all of a sudden, from Jekyll Island, The Creature of Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin, go check that book out. A group of men got together and twisted the arm of President Woodrow Wilson, who was a self-avowed socialist, apparently. And they said, we want a bank of our own. And we want our money in our bank. We don't want to put it in the system. We want our money in our bank. In our, basically, the piggy bank for the elites. And there's an interesting story behind that as well, but I'll get into that on a different podcast. And in 1913, President Woodrow Wilson signed those two documents. 1913, 1914. The interesting thing is, up to that point, there had been unrest in other countries, such as Europe. And there were certain things happening and certain things going on, and all of a sudden, later in the year of 1914, the United States of America gets involved in World War I. Interesting that the records from that time, and when you piece them all together up to this point, 2017, you will see that the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, the Rothschilds of England and the Rockefellers of the United States, funded both sides of the war. And this is what's happening in the United States of America with people like George Soros and others like him who are funding Black Lives Matter groups, all these other little tiny groups, these social justice warriors. They're being funded. How do you think, when you look at those pictures, how do you think they got these fancy signs? They certainly didn't make them on their own, did they? So I gave you that bit of history up to this point, the 3rd of May, 2017, to say this, that everything you see out there has been funded up by the elites. Any unrest is funded by both sides of this global political chess game. And have you ever read strategies from military generals and military organizations, strategies of how to take out your enemies, strategies how to covertly make your way into a town without being seen? Have you read any books like that? Do you know any strategies like that? Have you talked to people like that? Well, I have. I haven't read the books, but I've talked to people. And believe me, let me make it very simple for you. Farmers out here in Montana know this. When you have cattle and you have to bring them into the corral, what do? You surround them, and you have your dogs out there, and you surround them so they won't get away out in, and you do that with sheep, you do that with, pigs, and you do that with cows, and you do that, whatever, horses as well. You do that, right? I had to take some coffee. Sorry for the silence. But you do that. You corral all these animals into their respective pens, right? Take a broader look as to what's going on, folks. You've got people supporting Sharia law in America. You've got people supporting the social justice warriors in America. You've got people supporting the Black Lives Matters. Both those organizations, by the way, are domestic terrorists. And you've got all these other people systematically pushing the politicians in such a way to where these politicians are going to corral these other people, the people that want peace, freedom, liberty, and security for the United States. They're going to corral these people into one area. And the people that support Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and Maxine Waters and Jerry Brown, those people are going to be out there laying waste to our freedoms. Okay? They're going to be out there shutting down you and I when the Constitution prior to 1871 says that I have a right to say whatever I want to say, and it's protected. But after the corporate, the incorporation of the United States of America by the signature of Ulysses S. Grant on the Act of 1871, after that, it became, our rights became a privilege. And you have seen throughout history how many times our privileges have been suppressed. When in fact, we have a right and a duty to overthrow this nation. And when I say overthrow, I don't use that term lightly because it is in the Declaration of Independence. Go look it up. I don't care what people say to me as far as me personally, how they feel, because I know who I am. They can go jump off a cliff. I don't care. Take a long walk off a short pier, because I don't care what people think of me. I never have. Ever since I was young. I was 8 and 9 years old reading about ancient history of Egypt and political, societies in different parts of the world. I was 8 or 9 years old and I was reading about this. Okay, folks. By the time I got into high school, when I was 15 years old, I was bored. And I think people in America right now want something better. As a matter of fact, I know it. And because Trump is kind of pulling back on some of his campaign promises, what's that make you think about? What's that cause you to do? You know what I'm saying? So when you look at history and when you look at what today has, the 3rd of May, 2017, when you're looking out into the environment of this political arena, what's the one thing that jumps out at you? Now, I told you, you've got people trying to corral everybody in this one little section or their respective areas and shutting them up. This is what they do. You corral them, you feed them, they shut up for a moment. So when you look at the environment of this political arena and you see what's going on, what is the one thing that jumps out at you? That could be more than one thing, but what is that one thing that jumps out at you? I'm not going to tell you because I know what it is for me, but what's it for you? What's it for you? And that's just something that we have to take a look at. That is something that we have to understand. This is what's happening in our society today, folks, in the United States of America. I posted some stuff on American Liberty Radio Podcast on Facebook. Go ahead and check that out. And I'll be back in just a bit. I'm not going to go away for too long. So I'll be here. Okay? I'll be here. Don't go away. Talk to you in a bit. This is American Liberty Radio Network.
Been warned. Distorted Reality with Nick Tucker. DistortedReality.podbean.com and Distorted Reality with Nick Tucker on American Liberty Radio Network.
Sharing the truth one fact at a time without all the BS. American Liberty Radio Network. AmericanLibertyRadio.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Brian Lang with Live Truth Radio and TV. You're listening to Wayne S. Pierce with American Liberty Radio.
one fact at a time, without all the BS. This is the American Liberty Radio Network.
Welcome back. This is American Liberty Radio Network, AmericanLibertyRadio.com, 3rd of May, 2017. I am your host for American Liberty Radio Podcast, Wayne S. Pierce. How are you? Oh, folks. There are times I know that some of us just want to go out and just start, let's put it this way. We want to protect ourselves. Okay, I'll just leave it at that and let you interpret that however you want, okay? Wow, I need a cup warmer. Ugh, my coffee got cold pretty quick. Dennis Prager, Truth Revolt, 3rd of May, 2017. Will the second Civil War turn violent? Quote, if college presidents, mayors, and police chiefs won't stop left-wing mobs, other Americans will, unquote. In a recent column, and this is from Dennis Prager, Truth Revolt. In a recent column, I made a case about that Americans are fighting the Second Civil War, the deep chasm that has opened up between the left, not liberals, the left, and the rest of the country is so wide and so unbridgeable that there is no other way to describe what is happening. But I noted that at least thus far, unlike the First Civil War, this war is not violent. Unfortunately, there is now reason to believe that violence is coming. In fact, it's already here, but as of now, it's only coming from one direction. Left-wing thugs engage in violence and threats of violence and utter impunity. They shut down speakers at colleges, block highways, bridges, and the airport terminals. Take over college buildings and offices, occupy state capitals, and terrorize individuals at their homes. In order to understand why more violence may be coming, it is essential to understand that left-wing mobs are almost never stopped, arrested, or punished. Colleges do nothing to stop them, and civil authorities do nothing to stop them on campuses or anywhere else. Police are reduced to spectators as they watch left-wing gangs loot stores, smash businesses and car windows, and even take over state capitals, as in Madison, Wisconsin. It's beginning to dawn on many Americans that mayors, police chiefs, and college presidents have no interest in stopping this violence. Left-wing officials sympathize with the lawbreakers, and the police, who rarely sympathize with thugs of any ideology, are ordered to do nothing but emasculate police chiefs by emasculated police chiefs. Let me read that again, because here's a key point, folks. Left-wing officials sympathize with the lawbreakers. That's number one. And the police, number two, who rarely sympathize with thugs of any ideology, are ordered to do nothing by emasculated police chiefs. That's an important point to take away from this, folks. Consequently, given the abdication of all these authorities of their role to protect the public, some members of the public will inevitably decide that they will protect themselves and others. This ability of the left to get away with violence is one of the gravest threats to the American society in its modern history. Since the Civil War, I can think of only two comparable eruptions of mob violence that authorities allowed. One was when white mobs lynched blacks. That was many moons ago. The other was the rioting of blacks, such as the Los Angeles riots 25 years ago and the recent riots in Ferguson, Missouri, Baltimore, and Maryland. Today, authorities in what we once proudly proclaimed the land of the free and the home of the brave are intimidated to the point of paralysis. And exactly what do they fear? Not violence. They have made peace with the left-wing violence. What they fear is the left-wing media. If the Black Lives Matter movement is forcibly prevented from blocking tens of thousands of cars from entering or leaving San Francisco, the police and local authorities will be labeled a racist by black leaders, a smear that will then be echoed by the New York Times and the rest of the left-wing media. Likewise, if a college president requests enough police to come to a college campus so that a Heather McDonald, a Charles Murray, or an Ann Coulter can deliver a lecture, some of the student gangsters engaged in violence might be injured, and that college president will then be pilloried by the mainstream media. Furthermore, left-wing violence doesn't only succeed where it takes place, it succeeds where nothing happens. The left can now shut down places and events just by threatening violence. This is what happened last week in Portland, Oregon. One leftist called in a threat to the 82nd Avenue of Roses Parade. Is that right? 82nd Avenue of the Roses Parade. I think they meant anniversary. Saying that the Republican Party contingent marching in the parade would be beaten up. The business leaders organizing the parade canceled the whole event for the first time in its 10-year history. If they'd had any reason to believe that the police would have adequately protected the marchers in left-wing Portland, one hopes, that they would not have canceled the parade. An email sent to parade organizers perfectly summed up what the left's dominance of America through violence. Let me say that again. It was an email. An email sent to parade organizers perfectly summed up the left's dominance of America through violence. It said, quote, "You have seen how much power we have downtown and that the police cannot stop us from shutting down roads, so please consider your decision wisely," unquote. Meanwhile, the press lies about alleged white supremacists in President Trump's administration and alleged massive surge in anti-Semitism in order to do what the left has done since Lenin, blame others while it alone organizes violence. So, here's a prediction. This is what, let me go back up here. Dennis Prager from Truth Revolt says, so here's a prediction. If college presidents, mayors, and police chiefs won't stop left-wing mobs, other Americans will. I hope this doesn't happen because electing conservative Republicans and not donating money to colleges will be more effective. But it is almost inevitable. Then the left-wing media, the mainstream media, will enter hysteria mode with reports that right-wing fascists are violently attacking America. And that's when mayors and college presidents will finally order in the police. That's from Dennis Prager, Truth Revolt. I read that whole thing to you, folks. Excuse me. If you want to go read it yourself, you can. It is on American Liberty Radio Network. It's on American Liberty Radio Podcast on Facebook. So go check that out. But I wanted to bring that up because I wanted you all to know what is happening. The left, period, is destroying this country through organizations funded by the likes of George Soros, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, any other powerful trillion-dollar elite that's out there, and even other world leaders that come to the United States and make deals to tear down the very fabric of the United States of America. Okay? This is what's happening in the United States of America, folks. This is not some conspiracy theory. Time out, folks. There is no longer any conspiracy theories whatsoever. It is all fact. It is all out there. It is all in your face. And if you don't look at it, it's going to bite you in the ass when you turn around and try to run from it. Okay? I'm just telling you exactly what's going on. All right? Now, my friends in Michigan and I have friends in California. I have friends here in Montana. I have friends in Texas. I have family in Texas, actually. I have family in Ohio. I have family in California. So I'm going to direct my next statement to all of you, my friends and family, even here on, even on Facebook, even here on Spreaker. I'm going to tell you specifically this. If you can't get your head out of your ass and start looking at the real issues and the real problems of America and look for the, as I call it, the corrupt breadcrumbs leading right to the people starting all this crap, then you are the dumbest people on the face of the planet. You cannot understand anything without opening your eyes and looking at what's going on. I make no apologies for that. If my friends and family are offended by what I just said, I'll go buy you lunch. This is what's happening. Well, you can't call people dumb and stupid. Yeah, I can if they are. Well, you don't know everything. Did I say I did? In my past podcasts, I said I don't know everything because I'd be bored, because there wouldn't be anything else to learn. So open your damn eyes and look what's going on, because it's going to affect you. Here, let me give you a scenario which has happened in the past. Nazi Germany, this has happened. So let me give you a scenario of what could happen in America right now. You could be sitting in your office. You could be on the ground floor of your office. You could have that window office and looking out into the street and looking across the way to the restaurant or to the cafe you want to go to at lunch. You may be talking to somebody in your office and all of that. Then all of a sudden you'll hear a bunch of yelling and screaming outside. You'll hear a bunch of yelling and screaming and you'll start hearing glass breaking and, all that. You'll take a look out your window and you'll see a mob of possibly 50 to 100 people going down the street, tearing into stuff, ripping things apart, and you'll look down the opposite end of the street and you'll see police with military equipment and sheriff's department with military equipment trying to stop these people. Do you really want that in your neighborhood? When we lived in Reno, Nevada, we went down to this thing called Street Vibrations. It's down in Sparks. They close off the street, and they have parties, and they have, people out there, vendors and all these, and they have, it's just a big, massive street party is what it is. And it's over by Jonasquagas Nugget. And we were down there one day, and we were walking around. We just, checking it out. And we walked around this building, around the corner of a building. We looked down the street, and sitting, blocking off the street down there, was an MRAP. You military folk know what I'm talking about. It was an MRAP. It was a piece of military equipment with the big letters on the side saying sheriff. I'm going to tell my friends and family one more time. If you don't open your eyes and take your head out of your ass and start looking at what's going on and examining these things as completely and thoroughly as you possibly can, you're dumber than dirt. Let me tell you what some people do. Go to YouTube, go check out this short episode. I think it was from Twilight Zone, or I don't know what it was. It was a recent, not recent, I shouldn't say. It was back in the 80s. But you go to YouTube, you look up, just put in the search engine, The Pedestrian. Go look that up. That was a prelude. That was written by Ray Bradbury, and it was a prelude to his famous book, Fahrenheit 451. Go look up The Pedestrian. This is what most people do. Oh, I don't want to see the bad things, so I'm going to close myself off to the real world, to what's going on out there. Oh, I hear sirens, I hear people yelling, I hear destruction, I hear stuff. Now I'm just going to turn the TV up a little louder because I don't want to hear that. I don't want that affecting me. I don't want that ruining my day. I had someone tell me that. I don't want to look at the negative stuff in the news because I don't want it ruining my day. I want to stay positive all day long. And I don't care how positive you want to be. That ain't going to help. So the last thing you need to do let me retract that. The first thing you need to do when you wake up and get ready for work is make damn sure that your family is protected. And get to know your neighbors. I'm pretty sure if something happened in your neighborhood and your neighbors came out of your house, you'd go talk to them and everybody'd get together and quickly find a way to solve the problem. You probably hadn't even talked to your neighbors in months or maybe even years, and you've been living there how long? I say that because in 1989, the Northridge earthquake happened in California, and in certain neighborhoods, the fire department came in there, but there wasn't enough people, and the citizens came out of their apartments and all of that, and they were on the street helping the fire department, and they were helping each other. It does work, and they probably didn't know one another at all, but they were there together helping each other out. I saw this on the news. It was, all that, and there was I would like to call it a fluff piece, but it's called Humanitarian Stories, and they showed this. People didn't hardly knew their neighbors, but they came out and helped each other out. That was pretty cool. I like that. So we have to understand, family and friends, that the first thing in the morning that you have to do is to protect your family, is to make sure that when you lock that door and leave to go to work or wherever you're going, that your family is protected, that your neighborhood is protected, that you know how to protect yourself. That's number one. Number two, we need, as citizens of the United States of America, need to go to our politicians and say, hey, dude, let me remind you of something. Hey, dude or dudette, let me remind you of something. You work for me. Enough of your bull crap. We don't want your bull crap. We don't want your bull crap. We don't want you to do whatever you want to do. Here's what we want you to do. Because you work for us. Oh, well, yeah, how's that going to fly, right? Go to the Capitol building in your state. How's that going to fly? Yeah. Well, I'm sure some of your governors and some of your representatives will be cordial enough to listen to what you have to say. But no matter what you say, they're going to do whatever they want. It's called bureaucracy. And it's called political profiteering off of the backs of the taxpayers, because whatever they want, they're going to get. How? Well, it's called bribery and corruption. That's how the system works, folks. I had somebody tell me that, well, let me just say this. My father worked as a truck driver for many, many years, raising my brother and I. And even after I graduated high school, my dad was still working for many years. And it got to the point where he couldn't work anymore. And it wasn't that he couldn't work. He could do a lot. But he just decided he was done. He was retirement age. He was 65, 66 years old at the time. And he just said, I'm done. I'm done. And he retired. He filed for retirement and he got it. And he worked for a union, or worked with a union, in his truck driving job. I told somebody once that unions have outlived their usefulness and serve no purpose, which of course they do, and I stand by that statement. But somebody decided to tell me that I shouldn't talk bad about unions because my father was one, and he took care of me, and blah, 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 blah. And I just kind of sat there and listened to this person, and I went, yeah, he did. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But they are still corrupt. They are still useless and outlived their usefulness. Serve no purpose. And I told other people who said similar things to me, about unions. Hey, they're great and they work for people. No, they don't. No, they don't. I'll give you two names. Now, actually, I'll give you 2 names. 2 names right now. Go check this out. Carlos Gambino. Go check him out. And, of course, Jimmy Hoffa. Go check them out. You tell me whether or not unions have outlived their usefulness and serve no purpose. You go ahead and tell me whether or not that's true. And also tell me if it's true that unions do help their people out. No, they don't. I don't know where to go, folks. I don't know how someone cannot see this for what it is. You see what I'm saying? I don't know. I just don't. So to my friends and family, I'm going to reiterate this. Open up your eyes and see what's going on. Okay? Just put away your preconceived ideas, your indoctrination from this false paradigm that you seem to have your, head and your life in, and just get rid of all that and look at what's going on. Get rid of all that and look at specifics, look at everything that there is. And you're going to find a lot of cracks in that wall. You're going to find a lot of holes in that wall that you put up to keep yourself safe because you didn't want the negative stuff out in the world to ruin your day. So, there you go. More than half of young Europeans say they would join an uprising against the elite. Mass resentment against quote-unquote status quo, driving discontent. Paul Joseph Watson, InfoWars, 3rd of May, 2017, Infowars.com. More than half of young Europeans say they would join in a large-scale uprising against the elite, a massive poll has found. A whopping 580,000 respondents in 35 different countries were asked, quote, would you actively participate in large-scale uprisings against the generation in power if it happened in the next days or months, unquote. More than half of 18 to 34-year-olds said that they would. The sentiment is likely to be driven by a number of factors, including Europe's chronic rates of youth unemployment, which have spiked as high as over 50% in Greece and Spain. Greece, Spain, Italy topped the poll with over 60% in all 3 countries saying they would join a large-scale uprising against the establishment. Even in sleepy Belgium and prosperous Switzerland, the figure is higher than 40%. Respondents in France where 61% said they would rebel, blamed corruption, high taxes, and quote-unquote too many rich people for their discontent. The Quartz study also pinpoints quote-unquote voter apathy and being, quote, sick of the status quo, unquote, as reasons for why so many young people are ready to engage in civil unrest. This is going up on American Liberty Radio Podcast for all of you to take a look at. It is unbearably, I don't want to use that word. I'm going to use another word. I am not against those that want something for themselves. If they work for it, make it, and build a life for them. I mean, that's fine. That's great. And I'm trying to build this network, and with your help, I can. So contribute if you can. I'm not against those that want to make a life for themselves. Make a life for themselves. Okay? I'm not against that. I'm not against people coming to the United States of America that want a better life, that want to be free. I'm not against that. I'm pro-legal immigration. Okay, I'm pro-legal immigration. All right, I just want to emphasize that. You can come to this country all you want, but you better do it the right way. If not, pack your crap and get the hell out. I'm not opposed to people. I'm not opposed to people defending themselves. I'm not opposed to that. What I'm opposed to is the governmental officials, the politicians, the legislators in your city, state, county, and federal government that are suppressing our rights to protect ourselves. That's what I oppose. But I got this thing that I like to read every once in a while. It's called the Constitution of the United States of America and the Bill of Rights of the United States of America prior to 1871. I like to read that once in a while. I like to read the Declaration of Independence, just that first preamble, because it states that you and I have the ability and the duty to do what we do and do what we have to do to protect this country. Now, it's unfortunate that people don't want to read the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, any other document that we have in this country that is the foundation of our freedoms. I mean, it's important to do that. Okay? It's important to do that because there are, from my perspective, I believe that there are 3 reasons why we need to base our lives on peace, freedom, liberty, and security for this nation. 1, our own protection. 2, our own freedom. And 3, our own prosperity. Why not? Right? Why not? I would think that it would be that for other people. The Declaration of Independence, I'll put this on American Liberty Radio Podcast. Part of it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We all get that, right? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. I'm going to put that whole thing on American Liberty Radio Podcast for you guys to check out. We have the right and the duty, and it's our responsibility to change our government when it doesn't suit us, or if we are so suppressed to where we can't do a thing. So now, I want to get out of here in about a minute. I want you to remember one thing. You are the author of what happens in your life. The book is in your hand. The empty pages that you have to write on are there. That's one thing you need to remember. And related to that is the fact that we've finished a chapter in our history. Barack Obama's out of office. Now we have Trump. Now it's time to write the rest of the story. This is American Liberty Radio Network, AmericanLibertyRadio.com, American Liberty Radio at USA.com, American Liberty Radio at USA.com. This is American Liberty Radio Podcast on American Liberty Radio Network, sharing the truth one fact at a time without all the BS.